Hello, hello, and welcome to the podcast. We are here today with beautiful Corinne Meyer. I invited her on the show today because I'm so excited for her to share her story. I think she's got a great story to tell about her life, her challenges, and what brought her through the darkness and back into the light. So welcome, Corinne. So good to have you.
Hi, Jen.
Hi there.
How are you doing?
Good. I'm so excited for my listeners to hear your story. You've got such, it's a poignant story about how things happened in your experience through challenges and how the enemy tried to defeat you. So let's just jump right in. So can we start with having you just kind of, for those that don't know you, just understand a little bit about your life that's, touch on your childhood and what, just unpack that story for us, please.
Okay. Well, I come from a home where they were very religious, and God-fearing. Went to church every weekend, Catholic, and it was a good home. My parents were very loving. Took being parents very seriously, and so it's a great childhood. And then I ended up getting married early. I was 19, went into business right away, and became pretty much business focused on, trying to build a future, so we'd have something towards retirement, have a nice life. And basically through that, we built 8 retail stores, and I worked a lot. 80 hours a week was nothing. When people would talk about working 40 hours a week, I'd be like, that's like standing still. Like I wouldn't even know what to do with myself if I only worked 40 hours a week. How great would that be?
It sounds like you were like a outstanding citizen too. Like if you had 8 stores, people knew you.
Yeah, people knew me. I did a lot of TV commercials and stuff, so people would recognize me. We're involved in the community. We did a lot of donations and stuff like that for a lot of different charities. So we were very involved.
A fun fact here. Like I remember when we first met, because we got introduced, and I thought, gosh, you look so familiar, but I don't think I know you, but you look so familiar. And then, as we got to know each other, I realized I probably saw you on TV for years before we were friends. So, just to point out, Corinne really, like, people knew her name. She was an upstanding citizen in her community. So let's talk about what happened next then. So you were working crazy hours. You guys built an empire really in the industry that you were in. So what happened next? Because I think we turn a corner at some point here, right?
Yes. Well, my marriage was not a great marriage. It was more about work. We were more partners in business than anything, and it wasn't the best. But I did with it what I could and raised our son as best I could. Anyway, we ended up hiring somebody who basically ended up it was employee theft and destroyed the business. But prior to her coming on, I had a theft in my home, and that kind of is where things started taking a turn. That's where I had my great awakening. That's where the spiritual gifts like really came in strong. Prior to that, I'd have intuition here and there. Like I would know, like, we need to do this, we shouldn't do that. I just knew, and I always listened to it. And then after the burglary, I had
the burglary at the home or at
my home.
Okay.
At my home.
Was it like a home invasion, or was it someone broke in when you weren't home? Just for the listeners to know a little bit.
They broke in when I wasn't home. My son was home, but they broke in when I wasn't home. I was gone on vacation, and I just had a bad feeling when we left. I kept telling my son, lock the house, just don't leave it open, and that. So I had a bad feeling.
That's
I knew
really scary
something
that
wasn't right. But
your son was home when this happened.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
scary. That's and
yeah,
he was what, in high school at the time?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's
There's,
scary.
yeah. Well, and so anyway, when I came home, everything was fine. I mean, he didn't, nothing happened to him. But when I came home and I walked in my bedroom and I saw my shade, I felt really weird, and the dogs felt weird. I could feel a weird energy. And I walked into my bedroom and I saw the shades off, and I thought, something's not right. And I looked and the window was open. And then I went to the jewelry that I had and it was gone. Um, had a lot there, more than I should have, had there, but I had a lot there. Um, and then, the sickening feeling. And then of course I had been on strike all summer, and if we needed to call the police, but I was like, no, no, we can't call the police. And I run around the house cleaning, which is probably the wrong thing to do. But I mean, I was so embarrassed because, like, seriously, I had decided, because Quentin and Rich didn't help, I was like, I'm on strike. I'm not doing anything. They want me to be, whatever, free for all, always be ready to party.
You were already starting to like set some boundaries in your life, but it ensued chaos, as often it does when you're starting to set boundaries for other people.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah,
So
because they didn't care.
we're going to come back in just a minute, and I want you to, as we do that, I would love for you, because I know there's layers to the story, but I would love for you to invite in your intuition, like you were saying before, like you had a feeling that things were going to be off, or that you knew while you were gone that things were off at home. So I know that that's an important part of the story. So I'm going to invite you to embellish a little bit more on that, and then bring that into the situation too. So we'll be right back to hear more from Corinne. All right, welcome back, Corinne. So you were just telling us on how your residence, you had a burglary, and at the time you were trying to set some healthy boundaries, and so you were on strike, so you were too embarrassed to have the police come to see the state of your house.
Mortified.
And so I really want you to just maybe take one half step back and talk about your intuition, and then unfold that with the story at the same time, because I think that that's an important part of your story for people.
Well, like I said, I had felt things were going to be off, and it really kind of hit when I just remember I don't remember, like a day or two, or that evening, or whatever it was with the burglary. I don't remember exactly the date it was, but it was shortly after, if not the day of. I remember going into my basement, and I remember I could feel something just felt really bad down there. And I remember sitting on the steps, and I could feel this evil thing, and I could actually feel it wrapped around this other spirit, and like holding its mouth shut. It didn't want this other spirit. This other spirit was okay. It wasn't like nasty or evil. It was actually wanted to tell me what happened, but it couldn't, because this thing was, wrapped around it. And so then I just remember telling and I don't know how I knew to do all this, but I basically told the evil spirit that he was not welcomed at all, and he needed to leave now, immediately. You were not welcome to my home. And then the other one, I said, I don't know who you are. I feel like you have something to say to me. and you can stay and you can tell me what, when you can tell me what it is you want to say. I said, but you will harm nobody, you will touch nobody, you will do nothing in my home, my animals, nothing. And I just remember kind of laying the law down with it and going, but when you want to tell me, you can tell me. And
I'm just curious. As we talk about this, like, is that because you and I, one of the ways that we met was for me clearing your house out. I did some house clearing. Is that what happened prior to that for me?
Oh gosh, yeah. This was right after the burglary. I mean,
okay,
we
this is
met years and years later.
Okay.
This is years and years before.
So,
yeah.
But
this was well before I knew you.
At that time, you were giving permissions for some of the spirits to stay. So that's
yeah.
I'm like,
yes.
what? So
yes.
So just for sake of time, can you let us know? Like, we're gonna probably have to jump ahead a little bit just for the sake of time, but I'm guessing there's some, I know you, so I know there's some big growth jumps between that and now. So just for my listener's sake, so that, because they're probably on the edge of their seat, just like I was when you were saying that. So let's jump ahead a little bit. With just like during that short period of like those years, not short, but years, did you feel like you were being influenced then by the spirit that you gave permission in your home?
Not by that spirit, but by others. That spirit actually, like, I've come to realize that, they're all not good. However, this spirit actually did help me and actually saved my life a few times because there was a lot coming at me.
So when you say that,
stuff coming at me,
I'm sorry, I'm going to jump in again. I know we have a little bit of a lag between our connection here, but like, do you think that was an angel sent by God to protect you, or do you think that was a spirit that was trying to gain alliances with you to influence you? Do you have an idea of what that might have been?
Honestly, at this time, I never really thought a whole lot about it because it was so long ago. However, at the time, it felt like it was a person past, and it was somebody who, I want to say gray, but not really totally gray, a little bit more lighter than gray as far as like who they were. Like, they weren't dark, they weren't light, but it felt like a person, it felt like a spirit. I knew there was angels over me. I could feel them, but I also knew that I was being attacked. I knew that there was angels that would tell me when it wasn't safe to do things. I mean, I was in danger. I was told that was by an angel that I needed to get we got a guard dog, and I was told I had to, otherwise I wouldn't survive. And so I knew that I had to do that.
I'm going to fast forward you on your story for a second. And let's talk about when you went for a walk with your guard dog. Can we share that story?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's start there.
Okay. So I loved walking with her. It was that time that I took for myself. Anyway, I was at a park that I would go to very often. And this was during everything, and there was no proof or evidence. However, there was a lot of stuff happening. Anyway, I'm walking down the trail and down the sidewalk. And as I turned the corner, where I had parked in the parking lot was quite far away from where I was yet. I just got this really bad feeling. Like, I doubled over. Like, I was just like, whoa, like, oh, this is bad. This is really bad. And I knew that something was really wrong. I remember my focus zeroing in on this car that was in the parking lot that was next to my car. And I remember just staring at it going, oh my gosh, something's really bad. And then I kept thinking, no, you're just being stupid. Just stop being stupid. You're just paranoid. And then as I got closer, it just kept getting worse. And I kept watching that car. And suddenly, two guys jump out, and I was walking slowly. There was, at that moment, nobody in the park. There was a couple walking down the one area. And so I remember slowing my steps, going, I need to slow down. I need to let them get a little closer. And the guys jumped out and started tossing this ball back and forth, a small little football. And I thought initially they were going to just go off into the field. I'm like, oh, they're just going to go to the field, but they didn't. They stayed by the car. And I don't think the trunk closed because I think that's where they were going to shove me. So anyway, all of a sudden I'm getting closer and I'm thinking, you're just being paranoid. The guy is on the phone. I see the one guy's on the phone. And I hear him say, well, there's a dog. And after he says that, whoever said something, I could see how I visibly saw him kind of like step back. And I knew at that point in time, he was told to stand down to not attract attention or whatever it was.
I'm going to have you pause. I'm going to have you pause here so we can take a quick break. But let's pick the story right up where we left off. So it sounds to me like you could overhear this alleged assailants hesitating because you had a dog with you. Is that what I heard?
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to come right back, Corinne, and we'll pick up right where we left off.
Okay.
All right, so we're back with Corinne, and she is at a really interesting part in her story where she could hear her alleged assailants talk about the fact that she had her German Shepherd dog with her. So she was listening to them mention, which I'm guessing, Corinne, you thought, wow, they're going to try to attack me, right? Is that, so why don't you
I knew they were going to grab me.
Yeah. So, just take a couple minutes to share that story and then, tell us why it's relevant in our last few minutes here. Let's do that.
Okay. Well, so basically I knew that something wasn't going to be right, and I could see that they were in the position to grab me and then I knew the moment that they were told to stand down, and that they did. And then I just got in the car and made sure she stayed on the one side of me as I got into the car. I remember pulling away and I was shaking so bad. But I know that I had angels with me. I know that.
Yeah, that was my next question. That was my next
Mhm.
question was, did you feel like, did your gut instincts, tell you, like your spidey sense, for lack of a better word, like, oh my goodness, something really wrong could have just happened here, but because I followed my gut, and used this animal who's loves and protects me, to help me get out of that situation. Like, it was a close call.
Yeah.
So how do we get from like these alleged attackers coming after you? Like, could you quickly fill the blanks in from the burglary that happened at the residence? You said you had some stuff happen at the business, where you don't know if they were, I'm guessing you're not sure if they were connected or if they were separate incidences, but you were just being attacked, through your business, through your finances at home, but the burglary, and then at the business. And then we went from that to sharing the story about this possible abduction or assault. So I want you to just, give the listeners, like, fill in that gap just a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, so basically, I don't even know which direction to go with this, because I was involved in the anti-human trafficking task force, and I had a cousin who had been trafficked, and so I didn't know, like, if it was coming from that source or if it was coming from the burglary in my stores,
or if the two were related, because as we know,
or if it went hand in hand.
Yeah, we know that, as this truth comes out about, human trafficking, we're really starting to understand, in our area too, we know that is a prevalent area. It ranks pretty high on the, in the US for the state with a high level. We're pretty high on the list. So
third in, well, at least back then we were third in the country.
Yeah, third in the country at the time. And so, like, it's very possible that all of this stuff is related, right? And plus, now that this is the part I really want to include in the story, because I think that it weaves in. just as a review too, you came from a solid Christian home. You had solid Christian values. You were a hard worker. You built your business. You worked hard. 80 hours a week, like you said, was nothing. Your marriage was basically a business agreement in many aspects, getting married so young, right? Which it seems like that was a good fit business wise, just not romantically, right? So
Right.
that's
Right.
still probably the case, right? But
Yeah.
so as these things start to happen to you and you're involved in helping to better your community, you're involved in human trafficking, you really did. I mean, I know you personally, so I know the remarkable work that you've done in that, sharing your stories. So, as we hear more about human trafficking, right, we know how satanically connected that is. We know that there is a huge satanic strand that runs through human trafficking. So, for my listeners, I just want them to understand, like, it might seem like we're talking about random things and different, like different plot points all over the map, but they all are actually very connected. So let's, just giving that bit of information, let's unpack a little bit for the audience. How does this alleged attack or possible alleged, flopped abduction connect to all of the stuff that happened prior to that, and then where you are today in your faith? And you've been talking a lot about your intuition, and let's just let's give them a little bit more meat on that subject.
Okay, so well, it's involved, and I mean, I got into the investigation part of it, and the other part of it is my cousin who was involved. She had been trafficked. She told people things, like she told people that I could see things, and I could, that I could, that I had these gifts. So she wasn't quiet, and so I didn't know if it came from that.
I've got a question. So was your cousin, like, did you help her, or did she not get out? Because I think that's poignant to the story as you unpack it. We kind of got to give a little bit more meat there too.
Yeah. I tried very hard. She's gone in and out. I think she's finally out. At one point I had to step back.
I think that we needed to have that little bit of fact.
Yeah.
Going forward. So go ahead and jump back in where you were. Thanks.
Yeah. So there's a point I just kind of had to step back. But I hope I don't know. I just had to do that. But there was the people who were involved. One of the people that were involved in my burglary had connections to there was 2 different gangs, and that also were connected with my cousin had connections to these gangs, and I don't know. So it was like I didn't know if it was coming from, which point it was coming from, like where the threat was, but I knew there was a threat, and it was very real. So there was just a lot of
Sorry, I'm sorry. I don't mean to interrupt you. There's just such a lag between us, so I apologize.
That's
but
okay.
I want to steer you a little bit into inviting in the intuition part. Like, I know that, like me, because we're actually pretty close friends. We've really grown together in our faith too. And so, like, I know, like me, you were very gifted at a young age, and you didn't really know how gifted you were until this event happened. Like, it really sprung it to life. And then, you really got to understand, like, it's super, because I think that when we have an attack and, something happens to us, like, our body's at high alert, right? And then all of the things that we have are enhanced, right? It's almost like when someone loses their sight, their hearing becomes enhanced, their sensate becomes enhanced. So I think that's, from knowing you, I think that's when you're really like you were super honed in your skill of intuition. So and everyone, even in the Bible, it talks about, God gives us our gifts even without repentance. So, we don't have to wait until, for those of us didn't have such a foundation that you do, our gifts are still there, whether or not, we've come to the Lord or not. So,
Yes.
your gifts were, I believe, were super enhanced at that point, or you were just super aware of them. So
yes.
as that happened, and you were you could feel like there were certain, I'm just going to say energies, because I don't want to name them entities or demons or spirits, because I wasn't there. I don't know.
Yes.
But you knew some of them felt very, very bad, and you knew some of them felt like they were trying to help you for whatever reason. So as you grew in your awareness, your honed intuition, like, can we talk about how that evolved too? During the course of this event?
Sure. So going through all of that, again, like you said, very heightened. I was aware of a lot of things. At one point, I do remember I had a hot tub, and I remember relaxing in there. I used to go in there and I would kind of meditate and talk to God and pray. And all of a sudden I felt an angel come, and I could hear his footsteps. Clump, clump. I'm like, what in the world? Like, it was loud.
Oh.
And I'm like, and who are you? And he kind of laughed and he said, you'll figure it out. And then he put his hand on my forehead, and but he put his hand on my forehead, and I could feel him healing me. I knew that I was in trouble, because prior to that, because I had been trying, like, all the hours I'm working, and I'm also trying to figure out where this danger is coming from, and I'm trying to detect it, because the police don't tell you shit. Pardon my French. They don't tell you nothing. They leave you in the dark. Well, I'm trying to figure out. It's not fun. It's not a good place to be. It really is. You're the victim and whatever.
The first question that I have, I'm going to raise my hand so I have a question, just because.
Okay.
So bad. I don't know what else to do. Corinne and I, we talk on the regular, so for me to just zip it is almost impossible. But so just saying. But so
it's true.
It's true. She's the first person to tell you. So when you say that you can hear these footsteps, I mean, I've got goosebumps just hearing you say that. And do you feel like that when they healed you, did you feel like that they amplified your gifts? Did you feel like your emotions were healed? Like, when you say that, I want to know more. I'm thirsty for more.
Oh gosh, I think I'm trying to remember back there, because I just remember that my head, like, it felt like I had a knot in there, from just like constantly. I wasn't sleeping much. I was trying to, so it was a healing in that sense. And then, I mean, my stuff was so heightened. I mean, I could feel the angels around me. As a matter of fact, a fun story is, at one point, I remember walking into a UPS store, and there was this little boy, and he was with his mom, and he's looking at me, and I see him kind of looking, and he was just like enthralled and in awe. Like, I knew he could see the angels. I was just like, oh my gosh, because I knew that I had angels around me. And as a matter of fact, one of the things that I think is really cool is, while I was in so much danger, I could feel this white bubble of light or whatever, just protection. So I knew that I was being looked over, and I knew I was being protected, and I knew that there was something in my life I needed to be doing in the future, that they were like, you can't die. We need to make sure that you were safe. And I could feel that. I could feel all the enemies coming at me. I could feel all of it. But yeah, it was very, very beautiful. And I knew I was protected, and I knew I needed to listen when they spoke. Yes. Sorry.
Do you think it was an angel, or do you think it was Jesus? Like, who did you get a sense that it was?
Yes. Oh boy, I feel that was hanging out with me, which Gabriel kind of like teaches you stuff. And so I knew, like, initially when things first started happening, it was Gabriel. I felt Jesus walk alongside me. I could feel him. I could feel Archangel Michael when there was danger, and there was times when I was doing a lot of spiritual healing and clearing for other people. And when I would have conversations, I'd feel Michael like fighting off and battling. And then I also had times where, I know you've had that too. I mean, a lot of times you have that where that you're not speaking this really smart crap that's coming out of your mouth really isn't from you. It's coming from, from God, and he's basically, to help other people. I remember doing a clearing. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that I know when that happens to me, I feel like the Holy Spirit takes over. I feel like it's the Holy Spirit's just taken because I've submitted, and I just, the Holy Spirit's just telling everybody what they need to know. That's what I feel when that happens, just to be clear on that. But so what I'm hearing is you're telling me, and we have to take a quick break, is that you could discern the difference between the angels and Jesus. Like, you knew who you were dealing with. Did they tell you? Did you have a gut feeling? Did you see them? Like, quickly tell us.
Yes, there was times I could see them, I could feel them, I could hear them. I had a lot of things coming, and I mean, it was coming at me in a lot of different directions, but I knew absolutely that Jesus was there. I knew absolutely that it was Archangel Michael, and I knew absolutely when it was Gabriel. But yeah, they've just been
wow.
a lot.
All right, well, we're going to take a quick break and come back for our final segment of the show. But when we get back, I want you to tell the listeners, tell the listeners, where you are today, what you're doing to help, just kind of give us a current update, and we'll be right back. All right, welcome back. We are here still with Corinne Meyer, and wow, what a story. She has given us so much information just about how someone, you could come from a great family, you could have deep roots within the Lord, and still have demonic attacks, still have stuff show up in the physical, this reality. So, and wow, but I want to point out, like, you knew that God had your back. You knew you could feel the angel's presence. You could feel Jesus's presence. You had a healing. You had like this amazing, miraculous, supernatural encounter. It sounds like more than one time. So can you share with my listeners some final thoughts, like where you are today, what you do, how you got there? I would love that.
Yeah. I think the biggest, most important part is, like, when I was going through all of that, I was very aware of who I was dealing with, of when the dark energies or whatever. And then I went through a time period where when that danger was over, I started really searching, questioning, looking, trying to understand the gifts, trying to understand, what's good, what's not good, where God wants me to be. It was always, where does God want me to be? As a matter of fact, that was one of the things during that time period. I remember having an angel take my hand or my face. And I was looking in one direction at something spiritually, because I was like, okay, maybe I should look. I was kind of just checking everything out, wanting to know. I want to know. And so as I'm looking this one direction, I remember feeling hands go, no, that's not for you. And I like, no. And I was like, okay, all right. And I listened, because it was something that intrigued me. I was like, that's interesting. What is that about? And so as far as the spiritual stuff goes, I went down a path. I went, you and I both at some point in time, when I finally met you, we were kind of in the, the meditation, the spiritual, the new world spiritual stuff in that space. Yes.
Well, I have to ask this, it's like, you said that you were being steered, and I'm like, well, you were brought to me because you started joining my course. So I'm just curious, like, and that was before I had fully stepped out of the New Age movement. So, could you comment on that too? Because just to, quench my curiosity as well.
Well, the thing was actually early on in the beginning of stuff. When I was investigating the spiritual stuff, I was investigating the police stuff and the burglaries and why somebody's trying to come at me, and I was involved in the anti-human trafficking, whatever. Right. But then, so basically that was like, no, you can't look in that direction. However, I did end up going down, like I said, trying to understand everything. And then I ended up meeting you through a friend who basically said, oh, you should go to Jen. She has this class or something going on. And I thought, okay, I'm going to go there. And it just was interesting because I was the only one that showed up, and you and I had a really good conversation. We talked about a lot of stuff. We are both in the space of, the spiritual stuff, both of us very much strong in God, but not really understanding what it all was, not really understanding that that really was
our
a
discernment
lie.
muscle wasn't strong yet
Right.
that time, those years ago.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And so then we went through the whole thing of learning and understanding at that point in time and bringing ourselves back to God, and not really knowing that we had gone away from God. We thought we were with God and that we were in that, but finding out that that stuff kind of took us, and it's like, it's interesting because I always would see the paths, and I was always showing these paths, like you can go this path or that path. And I would always pray very hard, and I could always feel God around me. It's never that I felt ever like God like walked away or stepped away. I just was learning and trying to understand, which God does say in the Bible to try to understand. I have come to the point, and so have you, that all of that stuff was a lie. Those spirits and the new age stuff and, all of those things, you have to be very careful because there's a lot of dark spirits that can pretend that they're not dark, that can fool you. It's so easy. It's so easy to get trapped into that.
And we know now about the light
but
side of the dark system too. Like,
yeah,
really see that part of what was happening is they were trying to develop that light side of the dark system and make a carbon copy, like not a carbon copy, make an imitation, an inversion. We had the inversion of God, which is the dark system, and then we had the mirroring of God in the light system, and we could see, we watched that grow, right? We were a part of that growth movement. And then, as a personal note, I think you'd agree with me that when we got together, the light of both of us together, we could see and we could be more discerning. And both of us just grew that discerning muscle so strong because, the audience doesn't know this, but like you and I are almost parallel lives, even though we lived so many, our lives are so different. Like I had a daughter, you had a son, you had this very prominent business. I actually dealt with poverty. We grew up so differently, yet the experiences and struggles we've had have been so parallel. And we'll even to this day start talking about something and come back and realize we're researching the same information, or we're getting the same messages in the same direction. And I just think that power that we have, and and Jesus says 2 or more come together in my name, what's to stop us, right? So we really are a force to be reckoned with. So just to kind of end today's interview, I'm so grateful by the way that you came, because I think that your story is huge. And I think that there's more to unpack. There's some, maybe we can have you on again and talk more about the human trafficking and other things that people can do to be discerning. I think that's something that you and I could really help contribute to shining a light on. But
I do want to say one thing before we go, though. Can I say it now? Are you ready? And if you're done,
I was just going to ask you, like, do you have any final thoughts?
I do. I do want to say though, because I do your Elevate class every Wednesday. And I just think it's one of those things where, especially when you're fighting off so many demons and darknesses, even when you don't even realize that you're dealing with that, you just think that's life and things are going bad. I mean, just having that connection with somebody once a week to kind of bring you back. Which I know that we've done that for each other. I know that, with other people in the class, it's like, sometimes it just kind of helps you to bring your focus back to God and not get so distracted by everything. So I do want to say that it is really important, whether they do your class or not, but to have somebody that you
community
can
is
have a
community. It's
huge.
really that, it's community, because when you
Huge.
have support, especially in a group, I encourage just, a small group of people that you can trust and really be like raw and vulnerable with. And so obviously you need to develop that. But when you can do that, then especially with a faith-based group, like people can pray with you, we can hold you up, use our growth to help support you when you're in a growth period or growth stress. There's that power of discernment, like we've talked about quite a bit on the call. It's important to get with people of like mind, because again, two or more gather in his name, that's where miracles happen. That's where things really shift. So please, if you're interested, if you like Corinne and I's dynamics, we have a small group it's just grassroots. So, there's not too many of us at this time. So you'd really become part of the tribe, right? So this is us. So to where you'd need to apply to become a part of the group. But thanks for that plug, Corinne, because I think we need more members. And what just in the last minute here, I guess if you could leave our audience with anything, what would you tell them? What would be like your word of wisdom to share with them?
Oh, the Bible, faith, trust, the blind faith and trust. Like when I was going through everything spiritually, and the moment I just remember somebody telling me that I needed to have total faith and trust in God. And because I would get doubled over with things, like it was so painful that when you're an empath, you could feel everything, and it would get really bad. In the moment that I did have faith and trust, the moment I totally believed that God could do what he said he would do, he did. Like it was gone instantly. I just remember going, whoa, oh, whoa, that is awesome. And I've always had that faith and trust. Then since then, that was this big lesson of you just have to trust that God will do what he said he will do, and he does. He does.
That is an awesome way to end today's show. Thank you so much. I adore you. I'm so glad that you came and got to be a part of this this new show, because I believe that we're all here to help people, and we all have so much wisdom to share. Where I need growth, there's someone who I can reach out to, and where someone needs growth, we may have the answer. So we're here just to help each other move into that next level. So, that's why I called my group Elevate, because we're all elevating to that next level. So, all right. Thanks so much, Corinne. And, we'll see if we can have you back. Are you open to that?
Yes, of course.
Okay, cool.
Of course.
All right. Until next time, then we'll see you again.
All right. Bye.